Welcome to this presentation titled Self-Care is Not Selfish, Key Ways to Nurture Yourself and Be Your Best in Your Personal Life and at Work. Thank you again very much for joining me today. If you're here, it's very likely that you've been part of the Maru Health program. And if that's the case, it's so nice to reconnect with you. And if you haven't gotten a chance to complete our program yet, perhaps we could be a good fit. Either way, I hope you're feeling good about making time for this and that you're excited to refresh your intentions around self-care today. For time expectation wise, we should be together about 30 minutes and it will definitely respect that time frame. So as you log in, as you settle in, I invite you to take a few refreshing deep breaths in and out to just welcome a sense of focus and transition. We tend to rush from one task or another or from one meeting to the next. So I'm just going to give us a few moments to pause and breathe and notice any resistance that's coming up. Invite a sense of openness anyways. Just welcome yourself to this present moment. All right. Welcome. My name is An. I'm a therapist and a clinical trainer with Maru Health. I want to send out a thank you to my colleague, Annie Browning, who prepared a lot of the content for our presentation today. To get the most out of the time that you're dedicating right now, I invite you to grab a pen, a paper, as there are going to be some prompts for you to consider. And then if you have any questions, you are welcome to send them through the chat, and my colleague Mayu will help answer them. Or we'll definitely make sure to follow up with you through email. Okay, so during our time together, we're going to discuss how to make time for yourself as a priority, how to give of yourself from an overflowing space as opposed to pouring from an empty cup. We're going to make the case for why self-care is not indulgent, as this tends to be a big barrier for us. We'll also engage in a short visualization practice together and encourage you to start making your own self-care plan. All right, right off the bat, let's do a check-in. Notice any guilt or automatic obstacles that might be popping up for you right now at the thought or even the sound of the term self-care. So acknowledge those barriers, invite a sense of curiosity and flexibility around the possibilities of self-care. As you walk away from this presentation, my intention is that you'll be able to give yourself a convincing case as to why self-care is not to be put on the back burner, that you'll identify some strategies that you can easily incorporate into your day-to-day, that you'll have taken a pause to visualize what better harmony would look like, and then reduce any barriers that get in the way of your self-care. Moving right along, Audre Lorde, American writer and poet, says, caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation. So if you're someone who's always said you don't have time for self-care or that self-care seems selfish, self-indulgent, you're not alone. Kelly McGonigal is a health psychologist, lecturer at Stanford University, says, one of the things that you come across all the time is the idea that I can't invest in things that are good for me because it's taking away from my ability to be a good parent or do what I need to do at work. Wouldn't it be great if we learn to lean on our interdependence and that we can actually take some kind of joy in knowing that when I take care of myself, I'm also taking care of others. Self-care is not just about making time to recharge your batteries with a nap, a meditation, or just taking a break from family, although all of those things count. Self-care ultimately is about setting our priorities, setting boundaries, following through with those boundaries, and finding purpose. So what is self-care? What are we talking about? And I really like this image. This image and even just this phrase comes to me quite often throughout the week. You can't pour from an empty cup, take care of yourself first. The World Health Organization defines self-care as The ability of individuals, families, and communities to promote health, prevent disease, maintain health, to cope with illness and disability with or without the support of a healthcare provider. So simply self-care means taking care of yourself so that you can be healthy, you can be well, you can do your job, you can help and care for others, and you can do all the things you need to do and want to accomplish in a day. Paula Gil Lopez is a professor at Fairfield University, and she says the need for self-care is obvious. We have an epidemic of anxiety and depression. Everybody feels it. Okay. We often have an image of a spa-like experience when we talk about self-care. But here I'm going to offer that we must remember that we are multifaceted individuals, and true self-care is about including our emotional well-being, physical, spiritual, mental, and social well-being as well. So it's essential that we consider self-care as a way of life and not just a set of activities by themselves. Again, the World Health Organization names the core of self-care is built upon personal factors of empowerment, self-reliance, autonomy, personal responsibility. I'm going to invite you now, if you've got that pen, paper, or even just a place to take notes, take a moment to consider as you look at this list, what types of self-care are really solid in your life? Which parts of yourself feel really well tended to, actually? Write those down, celebrate the pieces that are working for you. And as you look at this list, also take a moment to consider or identify which parts of yourself could use more attention. Which parts of yourself could use more attention? Intellectual stimulation, more movement, connecting with your own emotions, social connection. So American activist Professor Angela Davis, she intertwines self-care with our ability to move towards purpose. She says anyone who is interested in making change in the world has to learn to take care of herself. So, and again, think about how you want to show up, how you want to make a difference at work, make a difference in your family, in your community. How is your commitment to self-care nourishing that mission? Or how is the lack of commitment to your self-care getting in the way? All right. So also let's think about self-care as other care. Ultimately, the line between self-care and other care is more connected than we might realize. Helping others is a kindness to ourselves, and then tending to ourselves supports others. We are interconnected. By integrating other care into our plans, we can go back to self-care's more broader, more connected origins and rebuild meaning at a time when so many of us desperately need it. Researchers have identified psychological ingredients that indicate that the act of helping is also very beneficial to the helpers, such as improving our sense of autonomy and our sense of empathy. Also, people report being more fulfilled on days that they're helping others, especially when they're feeling connected to why they're doing what they're doing, and then also connected to the person that they're helping. Since many of you have completed the Maru Health program, this idea of other care reminds me a lot of the self-compassion week in the program, where you identified a compassionate action for yourself and also a compassionate action towards someone else from day to day. So if you remember that one, or even if you don't, perhaps you could go back to that practice in the app if this is a strand that you'd like to focus on within your self-care plan. Why is it imperative and therefore not indulgent to identify and commit to your self-care? Engaging in self-care routines, integrating and nourishing the different parts of ourselves has been clinically proven to reduce or eliminate anxiety and depression, reduce stress, improve our concentration, minimize frustration and anger, increase happiness, improve energy, and much more. From a physical health standpoint, self-care has been clinically proven to reduce heart disease, stroke, and cancer. Again, we're building a case. On the other hand, chronic stress wreaks havoc on our health, weakens our immune system, inflames our bodies, making you more susceptible to colds, weight gain, sleep issues, stomach ulcers, depression, diabetes, heart disease. Even just reading this list gives me some stress. So reacting to stress with numbing activities as well, like zoning out in front of a screen, binging on junk food or alcohol, all of these pieces contribute to obesity, disease, poor sleep, and ultimately an unhappy existence. Self-care is also getting attention within the context of the whole healthcare system. The management of chronic diseases currently accounts for 70 to 75% of healthcare spending. The management, or unlike acute illness, chronic illness requires continuous, sometimes complex management over a long period of time with the goal of improving or stabilizing our quality of life. So according to the Society of Human Resource Management, key proposals around reducing costs and improving quality of life with chronic care is to engage in what they're calling self-management, which is really just self-care again. It's defined as engaging in activities that promote and protect our health, monitoring our own symptoms and signs of illness, managing the impacts of illness on function, emotions, interpersonal relationships, and then helping us adhere really to what makes us feel well within our treatment regimens. All right, so we're continuing to layer on the case for self-care and why it's important. I want to acknowledge that sometimes we're part of larger systems where we have little control over that may not be aligned with self-care, self-management, or preventative care. And if that's the case, don't be discouraged. There are still many ways that we can work on our personal self-care harmony a little bit at a time, despite the obstacles that we might face within these systems. So some ideas for simple self-care include spending time outside, just being in nature, inviting more movement throughout your day, and then giving yourself a few minutes to step away in between tasks or meetings. So I'm going to pause there because giving ourselves a few minutes here and there might be a hard one because of the culture of busyness that's very much revered. But do step away from your desk once every hour to hour and a half, make some tea, coffee, get a healthy snack, do a quick meditation. Already the 5 senses awareness comes to mind. Take a quick walk, stretch, really take the time to take these mini breaks. Whenever you feel like your brain is saturated, your energy is drained, get up, take a little break. Your focus and your productivity will definitely be better for it. Several studies have shown that taking short breaks during your day boosts productivity, it restores our motivation, and improves creativity. So if you're someone in a leadership position right now, go ahead and model this. Encourage your team to take mini breaks. Our human brain can only hold productivity for 45 to 50 minutes at a time. So as you're looking through this list in front of you and coming up with different ideas, whether it's here or other ones, be aware of your thinking traps. So remember our week in the Maru Health program where we focused on worries and thinking traps. With regard to self-care, sometimes our minds tell us, if I can't go for a walk for 30 minutes uninterrupted, I'm not going to do it at all. Be aware of the all or nothing trap. When in reality, a 5-minute walk or even just 2 minutes to pause, stand up, breathe will go a long way versus just powering through, powering through. So, just a little reminder to use some flexibility when you're thinking about what self care is going to look like for you. So, I'm going to pause here and just invite you, if you haven't already, to take a minute to write some ideas down. What does self care look like for you, despite any thinking traps that you might be noticing? What else stands in the way of self care? There's an organizational psychologist, Stu Friedman, who names that most people operate with a trade-off mentality. So, for example, if I want to perform better at work, I need to take time away from something else. And this mindset is very much ingrained in the way that we're taught just to view different parts of life from a very young age. Even the notion of work life balance is frequently represented as a scale with work on one side and then the rest of life on the other. While it's true that there are definitely limits to our time, it's this mindset that often stops us from making positive changes. So perhaps consider how to weave in self care or build flexible harmony versus the image of a scale, if that feels helpful for you, if that's something that you feel that trade off mentality gets in the way. Disappointment is also a natural part of life. When you consistently expect too much of yourself, when you set yourself up for burnout, continually failing to meet your own expectations can prompt guilt and shame, shaping unhelpful beliefs about ourselves like, I'm not good enough, that imposter syndrome, I just don't have what it takes. So I invite you to pause here and reflect, what barriers can you identify that get in the way of your own self-care? And take a moment to write them down. Start offering yourself a workaround or just a reframe. Okay, so now as you settle more and more, and invite you to take a few moments to visualize with me a self-care practice. So wherever you are, go ahead and begin to soften your body and find a relaxed, comfortable position. You can gently close your eyes if that feels helpful. And for me to drop into a moment a lot quicker, I tend to put my hand on my heart and start to follow the inhale and exhale of each breath. Just allow yourself to pause. And when you feel like your thoughts have settled a little bit, allow an image of you engaging in a self care moment to rise into your awareness. Maybe your self care moment centers on being in nature. Maybe it's taking a nap, connecting with a loved one, exercising, learning a new skill. Imagine yourself engaging in this experience fully and notice how your body feels. Focus on your location. Focus on the other people around you and your feelings in the moment. Add as much detail as possible to make this scene vivid and realistic. If doubts come up, such as, I don't have time for this, or this just was not going to work. Combat them with a positive mantra, such as, I can do this. I'm caring for myself. I have the strength to keep trying. I am worth it. Whatever feels most connected or authentic to you. Focus on your breathing and your mantra as you visualize the scene of your moment of self-care. Take a few breaths in and out. And when you're ready, gently welcome yourself back to this moment of awareness. Go ahead and jot down, what did you visualize? What was your self-care moment? Did anything surprise you about that moment? I invite you to jot down a few thoughts now so you can just keep them in mind for later. And also remember your positive mantra to come back to. All right. We're almost to the end of our time together. And I wanted to sum up some thoughts and techniques. Remember to define your own version of self-care. It's going to look different for each of us and how we move through our day and evening. Look for the opportunities, the pockets of time that you might overlook. Be aware of our thinking traps, especially the all or nothing trap, and stay flexible in what self-care looks like for you. Integrate wellness in your day-to-day. Remember that self-care is not just a set of activities that we engage in, but it's a way of life. Remember our interconnectedness. Practice other care that is right for you. And then, of course, take small breaks, create space for yourself. So with these ideas in mind, go ahead and write down one thing that you want to do for yourself today, something that you can really act upon, commit to today as a self-care act. Maybe it's taking a short walk, doing a few stretches, enjoying a meal, making sure you're staying hydrated, whatever comes to mind. Maybe even tell someone else so you can have accountability if that's helpful for you. And then as you think about a plan for today, let that carry you into making a plan for the next day and the next day. None of this has to be really big, just very intentional. If it feels right for you, as we close, you could even type in the chat. Even just naming what you're going to do for yourself to others might give you that accountability that you need to follow through. So again, thank you all so much for spending some time with me, refreshing our ideas on self-care. This was being recorded, and you can always come back to it. If you have any questions, make sure to reach out to us. I encourage you to go back to some of the practices in the Maru Health app if any of the material sparked some ideas to integrate into your own self-care plan. Wonderful. I'm seeing some self-care intentions. Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining, and we wish you well.